And for more analysis on the trial, we bring in ABC News contributor and host of the Law and Crime Network, Mr. Brian Buckmire. Thanks again for your time, Brian. So Derek Chauvin invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to testify. What were the pros and cons of doing this? And do you think that he made the right choice?
Yeah. So ultimately, I think Derek Chauvin made the right choice. In terms of pros, the pros for not testifying is that if Derek Chauvin did testify and slipped up in any way, talking about his truthfulness or his tendency to be peaceful, the prosecution, would be able to bring in other acts, potentially the fact that he's being charged with tax charges, as well as his previous uses of force of other individuals that may have brought him civil or criminal liability. And so that would have opened the Pandora's box. In terms of con, the defense really needed someone. I think the only person who could really do it would be Derek Chauvin to get on the stand and say, this is what I was thinking. This is what I was distracted about. Yeah, I followed the rules of Chief Arredondo and I followed the outlines of Lieutenant Zimmerman, and I used those tools at my disposal, and I came to this conclusion, and that was reasonable for me at that time. Everyone else is kind of Monday morning quarterbacking. That would have been the pro for him to testify, but I think weighing out those two factors, I think he made the right choice.
And yesterday, the defense argued that carbon monoxide from the squad car may have contributed to George Floyd's death. How well would you say that the prosecution knocked that down today?
Very well. This was a battle the defense didn't need to fight. They took a shotgun to a trial where they should have used a scalpel. And when you do that, the prosecution has the ability to bring in the star witness they absolutely wanted to bring in, that being Dr. Tobin, to artfully say that there was 98% of oxygen in George Floyd's body, meaning that there would be up to, not necessarily actually, but up to 2% of carbon monoxide. And Dr. Tobin artfully said and looked around at the jury that all of us have 0 to 3% of carbon monoxide in our body at any given time. So seeing 2% is not what the Dr. Fowler saw in terms of 12 to 18, and he was wrong, which takes away from that doctor's credibility.
A shotgun instead of a scalpel there. And just taking a step back, here's what Special Prosecutor Jerry Blackwell said in his opening statement on day one of this trial.
We're going to show you that putting knees on somebody's neck, Mr. Floyd's, putting a knee on his back for 9 minutes and 29 seconds was an eminently dangerous activity. And he did it without regard to what impact it had on Mr. Floyd's life.
Now that the evidence phase is complete, what are your thoughts about how well the state made its case?
So the state did a good job of kind of not really underselling, but selling just enough what they were going to be able to prove in this case. And they did do that. They put forth at least evidence on their case that was reasonable, it was logical, and it came from a credible source. And so the prosecution, at the very least, can come up in summation, which we'll see on Monday, and say, remember what we told you we'll do on opening statements? Well, we did it. We promised that. Here's the case. Go and find a conviction. And that's what you want to do when it comes to a summation.
So you feel that the prosecution delivered. Let's hear, as far as on the defense's side, what was said on day one in their opening statement.
The evidence will show that Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl, and the adrenaline flowing through his body, all of which acted to further compromise an already compromised heart.
Would you say that the defense provided enough evidence to support their theory in the case?
No, and there are so many things wrong with what Eric Nelson said there. And I think the best way I can do it is to show you the better way of doing this. Eric Nelson should have got up on opening statements and not promised what the evidence would show, but reinforced that the burden is on the prosecution, that he doesn't have to prove anything. However, that he would be able to show that there's reasonable doubt by showing an alternative explanation as to why George Floyd died. Now, that doesn't promise what he will do, but says that he'll show just a monocle of information to catch you or the jury in terms of that position of being in reasonable doubt. But when he puts forward that statement that he's going to show this, he's taking on a burden that he doesn't need to take on, and he failed, at least in my mind, to do that. And so the jury's going to expect him to give them what he promised in opening statements. I don't think he can give that on summation.
And And Brian, if I can just go back to that statement, because it strikes me that what he didn't say led to the death was anything about carbon monoxide. And so do you feel that that maybe was just kind of a Hail Mary in the middle of the trial?
Yeah, Hail Mary, and again, going back to my analogy, a shotgun approach instead of a scalpel. I think that as this trial went on, and we saw that not only in the carbon monoxide argument, but also in that video where we're saying, is George Floyd saying, I ate too many drugs, or I ain't do too many drugs? As this trial went on, Eric Nelson literally threw everything in the kitchen sink to see if it would work, and if some or most of those arguments don't work, his credibility decreases, which each one of those arguments that doesn't seem to stick, and the jury may be left with even a strong argument by Eric Nelson, but because 9 others were weak, they're not going to credit the one strong argument.
Brian Buckmire, appreciate your time and insight.
My pleasure.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.